Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining the ACU Online Writing Center's presentation, APA Underground Subtle Details. I'm joined by Dr. Stephanie Short, the esteemed Dr. Stephanie Short, one of ACU Online Writing Center's tutors, and I'm also a tutor, Dr. Ingrid Bradley. And Stephanie, if you'll tell them in chat, tell our folks in chat where you're from. I am from Merritt Island, Florida, where I reside, and I'm happy to be a tutor for ACU. And Stephanie and I are two of the tutors you might encounter when you set up an appointment with the ACU Writing Center. So I'll provide a few details about the Writing Center and then go into a fairly short presentation. It's designed mostly to make you aware of some of the subtle nuances of APA style. And of course, you can go to the sources that we provide for more in-depth information on them. About the Writing Center, if you don't already know, we want you to check us out. The quick link in my ACU. And there's also a watch this video link for steps on how to make an appointment and submit a paper. We work with you at any stage of your writing experience, even if you're just thinking about the forthcoming assignment or looking ahead in your syllabus and you need to have some assistance figuring out all the subtle details of the assignment and also the rubric. We are here to help you through that entire process. There are two types of assignments listed on the schedule. You can make an asynchronous appointment, which is where you upload your paper and we send you feedback by email within 24 hours. And that email is in the form of a Writing Center report. We can also schedule a real-time phone Zoom appointment with you. You go to schedule and click on the Zoom link at your appointment time, and that's Central Time, and you'll have a live Zoom appointment where we'll go over your paper with you. You can access many writing-related resources on the Online Writing Center website. We have so much to offer. We have blog posts, podcasts, webinars, recordings of webinars. So the submission process is schedule an appointment at WC Online and submit your paper to the week's Canvas box. Other webinars than this. We have all kinds of webinars coming up, quite a few actually. So you want to look at our website and also subscribe to the YouTube channel to see some of our recordings. Here are our resources. I placed those in chat at the beginning so that you could go ahead and download those links and save them to your bookmarks. But we have an APA course template that's available if you haven't already started using it. It's very helpful. We also have a YouTube channel and the Online Writing Center blog. Contact us at these links, Online Writing Center at acu.edu. Anytime you have a question, anytime, day or night. We'll get back to you very shortly. Schedule an appointment and visit the Online Writing Center website. Now, APA Underground, lesser known features. APA's goal is not to torment us. It's really not. Its goal is so that we all write with clarity, precision, and inclusion. These are very, very important elements. Well, what's clarity? Clarity is where readers understand what the writer is trying to convey. Precision. Writers choose specific words that convey additional breadth and depth to convey an idea. And inclusion. Writers use language to convey and respect readers' experiences in their communities. So you can see that APA's goal is overarching. As writers, we have a responsibility to provide clear, precise, and inclusive content. And APA is actually there to guide us, all of us, at whatever stage of writing, academic career we have, or professional career we have. APA is student focused. It's interested in accessibility. It's also interested in best practices in science and the use of language. The overview for today's fairly brief little presentation, we're going to talk about inclusive and bias-free language. And we're going to talk about anthropomorphism, otherwise known as personification. We'll look into transitions, and we'll also address italics and quotation marks and verb tenses. Bias-free language. We talk about people with exclusivity and respect. Think about that for a moment. Bias-free language. We want to talk about people with inclusivity and respect. We really want to pause and think about what that means. Bias-free language, reducing bias. One way that we can reduce bias in our writing is to describe only relevant characteristics of people. Only those characteristics that are directly related to the study or inquiry. You don't want to include anything that's gratuitous. So you want to avoid including, if not absolutely necessary for the inquiry or the study, age, gender identification, disability, race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. So think about this for a moment. If age is not relevant to the study, don't include it. If gender identification is not relevant, don't include it. Or disability, race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. If it is not part of the study, don't include it. Again, only include information that is directly related to the study or the inquiry. Be specific. Being specific is a way to address more bias-free language. For instance, age range. 15 to 18 years old is far more specific than an age range like under 18 or over 65. So be specific when you're addressing age ranges. Disability. Names of conditions are more specific than categories. And here's an example. Alzheimer's disease is far more specific than types of dementia. And avoid people with disabilities. Avoid that term, people with disabilities. It's non-specific. So the more specific that you can be in your writing, the more bias-free that you can be. Bias-free language about human identity. Gender. Gender is attitudes, feelings, and behaviors that a given culture associates with a person's biological sex. Now, if you're going to address gender, keep this definition in mind. Sex, on the other hand, you want to use assigned sex or sex assigned at birth. When you're referring to human beings, refer to them as individuals, people, persons. Avoid man or mankind, policeman, housewife, opposite sex. Instead, police officer, homemaker, another sex. So think about those for a moment. Human identity has its own way of presenting itself in a very unbiased way. Bias-free language, human identity continued. Avoid he, she. It is now acceptable as the antecedent to refer to he, she as they or their, as a singular pronoun. Racial and ethnic groups. Include the nation or the region of origin. Be more specific. Chinese Americans, Mexican Americans. Sexual orientation. Lesbians, gay men, bisexual people, straight people. Avoid the word simply gay. Socioeconomic status. Avoid low income. Something like this is better. Below the federal poverty threshold for a family of 4. Notice how the specificity is much less biased and more appropriate. Avoid labels. Labels can occur when you're using adjectives to label. The gays, the poor. Better, gay men. Older adults, a person with schizophrenia, rather than saying a schizophrenic. Better, an autistic person, not a person with autism. So in summary, avoid all language that is judging others in any way at all. More on age. Any age is a person and an individual. If age is important, let's try this. Under 12 years of age is a child. 13 to 17 years of age is an adolescent, young person, youth, young woman, young man, transgender young man, or transgender young woman. 18 years or older, adult, woman, man, transgender man, transgender woman. 65 years and above, older population is the right term. Avoid the word seniors, elderly, or the aged. Now we talked about biased language. That's just to give you a little start on that. There's a lot more details in apastyle.org. I've really just touched on it. It's a lot to remember. So you'll want to maybe bookmark, if not keep on your desktop, that website. Here's another area that APA addresses that makes your writing so beautiful, and it's transitions. In the revision stage is when most students, most writers integrate transitions, but I thought I'd introduce them because they're so very helpful. They're used to smooth out paragraphs and sentences. Now, to smooth out paragraphs and sentences, you use transitional words and phrases before the sentences. Now, you use transitional sentences at the beginning of a paragraph to weave in the ideas from the previous paragraph. These techniques provide continuity, but you don't want to overdo them. You want to use them sparingly and effectively and vary those that are chosen. Some transitional ideas. To explain things in a different way. Here is a way that you can do that. That is, in other words, let's say to illustrate specifically. For example, as one example, in particular, to emphasize a point or finding. Interestingly, it is interesting that. Surprisingly, it is surprising that. Importantly, it is important that. Now, to present your own idea or your argument, it seems plausible that, it seems reasonable that, it seems logical that, it could be argued that. To show contrast. By contrast, conversely, however, although, nevertheless, nonetheless, notwithstanding, on the one hand, on the other hand. Now, more transitions are available at apastyle.org. Keep them handy. I find that I keep a printout of all the possible transitional phrases and words right next to my computer. I don't have them on the computer. I actually have a printout, and they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. And again, you don't want to overuse them. You don't want to overuse the same ones. You definitely want to provide some variety. Italics and quotation marks. Italics, did you know? First use of a key term or phrases is often accompanied by a definition. So here's a way to use a quotation mark. Writer's block is a psychological inhibition preventing a writer from proceeding with a piece. So this is a great use of italics that you may not have known about. So if you're going to define a word, it's nice to put that word in italics before the definition. Do not italicize quotations, though. I have seen that where an entire quotation will be italicized. You use quotation marks only. APA does allow for you to italicize single words for emphasis, but do it sparingly. APA would prefer that you write the sentence in the way that the emphasis is clear. But if you can't do that, go ahead and italicize a single word. Anthropomorphism. It's personification. This is when you give attributes of human characteristics to non-human entities. APA is very clear about this. APA does not like personification because it's ambiguous. It's not specific. So what you want to avoid is this paper addresses, this theory concludes, the study asserts. And the key here are the verbs that are used. They're human-like verbs. What's better is in this paper I address. This puts it back on the human. This section addresses, the results suggest, and the study found. It's all about the verbs used, and it is fairly complicated. If you have any question at all, go to the apastyle.org and address it. A lot of writers find it very difficult to avoid it. So they write in a way so that they never border on personification. If you have any questions at all, and you think that you might have personification all throughout your paper, just submit your paper to the Online Writing Center and indicate that that's one of your concerns. And we'll certainly look out for that and advise you accordingly. So here's some examples. Again, it occurs when writers attribute human actions to inanimate sources or to non-human animals, as demonstrated in the following table. Rat pairs lived in the same enclosure. That's the correct usage. Incorrect usage would be rat couples lived in the same enclosure. And the reason this is incorrect is rat couples, according to APA, makes a misleading comparison between pairs of rats and human romantic couples. Here's another one. The theory addresses is correct. The theory concludes is incorrect. A theory might address, indicate, or present, but researchers, not theories, conclude. So you can see where this is extremely subtle, extremely precise, and extremely specific. But this is the second part to APA, and this is about the subtle nuances about writing in a way that's extraordinarily on point. Verbs are, now this is verb tense. We are going to talk about verb tense. And what you need to do in your paper is to remain consistent as much as possible. Now, verbs are direct, vigorous communicators. Use a chosen verb tense consistently throughout the same and adjacent paragraphs of a paper to ensure smooth expression. Here are some examples. Here's a literature review, or whenever discussing other researchers' work. So the recommended tense is past, Martin addressed, and present perfect, researchers have studied. In the methods section, past, and an example, present perfect example. Reporting of your own or other researchers' results. Past, results showed, scores decreased, hypotheses were not supported. So this is a good chart to have handy. It is available through APA. I'm pointing this out because it is very detailed It's somewhat tedious to mind, but certainly during revision and editing, these are the nuances you want to look for. And here are some more verb tense details, personal reactions, past, present perfect, and present. These are options for you. I felt surprised, I have experienced, I believe. Discussion of implications of results of previous statements, present. The results indicate, the findings mean that. And presentations of conclusions, limitations, future directions, and so forth, present. We conclude, limitations of the study are, future research should explore. Regarding verb tense, consistency is key. When explaining what an author or researcher wrote or did, use the past tense. Here's an example. Patterson, 2012, presented, found, stated, discovered. However, there can be a shift to the present tense if the research findings still hold true. King found that revising a document 3 times improves the final grade. Smith discovered that the treatment is effective. I got this source from academic guides at Walden University. So today's presentation, here are my references. I went to the American Psychological Association, apastyle.org. I also went to Merriam-Webster Dictionary on Writer's Block. And I went and borrowed information from Walden University's academic guides, which I found very helpful, and on verb tenses. So are there any questions about this presentation or what the Writing Center can do for you? Well, if there aren't any questions, please feel free to email us any inquiries that you might have. Certainly take advantage of the links that are in chat and any links that you find on our Online Writing Center's website. Sign up for an appointment. We're looking forward to working with you. And also look at the upcoming webinars and look at the past recordings of webinars that might be of interest for you. And thanks, everybody.